Hey, it's WorldFilmGeek here, and I just finished watching the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the second time. I watched it twice today, so I figured it's a good idea to finally give my ranking of the franchise from the worst to best. Now, I do have some of the Blu-rays and DVDs here. Now, if I don't, I'll project the poster up on here, but I will be getting those eventually because I'm a completist when it comes to franchises. So it's like I got to have all of them. So anyway, we're gonna begin. We're gonna go from worst to best. So here we go. One I don't like so much is this one, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. The reason I did not like this one so much, I mean, there were a few redeeming qualities, but I didn't like the whole Illuminati angle. I felt it was just totally different. And I like different, but not that kind of different, where there weren't even cannibals. And second of all, I don't really see this as a true Texas Chainsaw sequel. I see it more of a alternate universe, considering that the family name in this movie Slaughter. But there are a few redeeming qualities. I thought Matthew McConaughey was hilarious as Velmer, Leatherface's brother, and seeing Renee Zellweger go from this shy little wallflower to like a strong woman by the end of the night, I think that was a big redeeming factor. The only issue I had was Leatherface himself. Granted, I know Robert Jackson's no longer with us, but he was the whiniest Leatherface out of the whole entire spiel, and I couldn't stand it. He mostly spent that movie screaming and whatnot. It was ear shattering at times. And the only other redeeming quality that I could talk about is the appearances of John Dugan, Marilyn Burns, and Paul A. Bertain in the final moments of the film. So with that said, this is the bottom of the barrel when it comes to this franchise. Okay. Next, we have Texas Chainsaw 2013. Now, it's not a bad film, in my opinion. I just felt the biggest issue was the age of Heather. I felt like she was supposed to be a 40-year-old, but we have her played by Alexandra Daddario, who's obviously 27 years old. And as a result, I just felt like that just threw everything off. Plus, she has the cheesiest one-liner of the entire film. You know, do your thing, cuz I'm like, no. But that's not what I'd say. I did like the Leatherface in this one. Dan Yeager did a great job. He did it right, and they kept the mystique going, where you just see the bottom of his face in one scene where he's making the mask. I thought that was pretty cool, and the fact that he sewed his face on, I think that was pretty sick and disturbing. But it's not a bad film, but it's not great, only because the protagonist was kind of miscast in this one, in my opinion. So that's what I gotta say about this one. So anyway, that's it. That's the next one up. And the next level up is the prequel to that very film called, and the original called, just Leatherface. So what do I talk about this one? All right, so here's the problem. I think a lot of people didn't like the whole Usual Suspects meets Natural Born Killers route. I did like it. I just felt, for some reason, I wanted a little more chainsaw action in this, but we don't get that until we only get that one scene in the opening, and then the third act is when we finally get it, when we get the big reveal about who it is. I did like the fact that it was pretty much, you have to guess which one of the three crazies are Leatherface. Is it Bud, the big towering guy, Ike, the loose cannon, or is it Jackson, the normal one? Yeah, it's somewhat predictable, but at the same time, you kind of go along for the ride and keep that mystique with Stephen Dorff's crazy Hal Hartman. So with that said, I just wish there was just a tad bit chainsaw action in this one, but I did like the premise of the road trip and the Natural Born Killers, Usual Suspects type deal. So yeah, so that I'll put that one next. After that one comes, I have to project it because I don't have it, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Very brutal. It's a very brutal prequel to the 2003 remake, and I'm putting it on that spot because I don't know. I just felt I didn't resonate with the characters, the main characters, that well as I did with any of the other franchises. You know, I was in tune with the characters from all the other ones. Like Next Generation, I resonated with Jenny. But this one had like pretty much throwaway characters because you kind of knew what to expect. But you did get to see Thomas Hewitt, you know, masked up in some way before he becomes Leatherface. So I thought that worked out really well. Arlie Ermy is just, he was the highlight of that film as the crazy Charlie Hewitt, who takes on the identity of Sheriff Hoyt after he kills him. The chainsaw scenes are brutal. The one guy get the biker and whatnot, who gets, you know, he gets the first victim of the saw, and that was just insane. But yeah, for some reason, I just couldn't resonate with the main characters in this one as much as I wanted to. But it did have a solid casting: Jordana Brewster, Matt Bomer, and Diora Baird, and of course Andrew Bernarski. You know, I think he's a really good Leatherface in terms of the alternate timeline where he's more tenacious. He's not really mentally handicapped in a sense. He's more just someone who is made fun of because of a skin condition he has. So yeah, with that said, the next spot will be Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning. After that, I'm picking Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. This one, you need to see the unrated cut. Don't see the R-rated cut. The first time I saw it, it was the R-rated cut, and it looked tamed down. But you got to remember, the MPA were more or less, they were too conservative for their time 30 years ago. You know, if this was released the way the uncut was to be released in 2022, guaranteed rated R all the way. But rated R back then, they were just, they butchered the crap. They made New Line butcher the crap out of this. And but finally seeing the unrated cut, I would rate it there because, you know, you had a great final girl, Michelle, played by Kate Hodge. I like that they made, there's a scene I like where Michelle's strapped up to the chair. She's tied, she's nailed to the chair. Leatherface stares at her, and I feel like he's trying to be a gracious host when he hands her the headphones. I thought that was a kind of a little dark humor there. Viggo Mortensen, this is one of his early roles, and he's phenomenal in this as Tex. You know, supposedly mild mannered, but then we get to see his true colors throughout the film. Ken Foray, I can't say enough about that guy. That guy's a legend, and the fact that the test screenings didn't like what happened to him at the end, which forced New Line to change a certain thing in that film, which you probably know by now what it is. If you guys saw this, I can see why. You know, no one likes to see likable characters really get killed. So, yep, kind of spoiled that one. That's okay. That's what it's all about. So yeah, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, great, and the fact that he had a daughter in this is just even more disturbing. This was kind of an alternate. I feel like this was a bit of an alternate timeline as well, because did he really, you know, was this other family that he had outside of what happened in the second one? You know, that's like they're going for another reboot, but I don't know. That's just how I feel. So with that said, that's the next spot up is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. And next we have the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I saw this in the theaters. Couple jump scares for me, couple jaw-dropping moments. It was a good remake. I like that they kind of changed it up a bit with making Leatherface not so much mentally handicapped, but more tenacious and someone who's very, very ticked off because of his family as well. You know, like the fact that his family's there for him and all that. So there's still that family dynamic bit, but I felt like this Leatherface, played by Andrew Bernarski, more tenacious, more lethal. You know, as soon as his family tells him, bring it, you know, his family gives him the calling to bring it, he's ready to bring it with that chainsaw. Jessica Biel is a great final girl. We got some great support in the forms of Jonathan Tucker, Mike Vogel, Erica Learson, Eric Balfour, who's like, they felt like his screen time was minimal because he's the first one to get killed in the movie. Arlie Ermy once again shines as Sheriff Hoyt, which we later learned in the beginning he's actually his uncle. Pretty cool kills. I did see the deleted scenes. You know, some of the kills were a little more graphic, and I could see why they cut it down. But I thought director Marcus Nispel did a good job on this one. So I would have to say this is the next one up. And I'm going to get crucified for this one, but the next one, sorry guys, this is number 3, is the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. I absolutely loved it. I only had one small issue, but I'll get to that in a second. but I do like the fact that we kind of learned that this is a direct sequel from the guys who did Don't Breathe, Fede Alvarez and Rodos Rodriguez. I think that they did it. They had a good idea for the story, and it did pretty well. It takes some of the today's social trends of social media influence, cancel culture, and even post-traumatic stress disorder from school shootings in the form of one of the major characters here, Lila, played by Elsie Fisher. My only, and Mark, I have to praise Mark Burnham. He did a fantastic job as Leatherface. You get to see shots of his eyes pre-mask, and you see the look in his eyes. This guy is, you can know this guy is not playing games. He means business. I think Gunnar Hansen would be proud of this role that Mark Burnham took over. My only gripe with this installment was the treatment of Sally Hardesty. I felt like she wasn't given enough to do. They should have given her, I felt like if they couldn't give her more to do in this one, they should have just kept her out of this one and maybe set her up for maybe have her come in for the second follow-up if this were to happen. It would have made more sense. But I do like the fact that they made her a Texas Ranger. I have a hunch that they came up with that concept inspired by the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But there's little Easter eggs, such as if you see the sign Harlow, the population is 1974. John Larroquette returns as a narrator. Pretty good young cast, mostly Sarah Yarkin and Elsie Fisher. They're the highlights of the film in terms of the would-be victims. The bus scene, you all saw the trailer. If you all saw the trailer, the bus scene lives up to the title of this franchise. It really lives it up. And as they say, you don't cancel Leatherface, he cancels you. But my only issue was I wish they did something different with Sally in this one. But it is what it is. It's still number 3. I still enjoyed it. I saw it twice, as a matter of fact. So I would say the new one is my number 3 favorite Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. And up next, we have the sequel, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, 1986. Tobe Hooper came back, signed a 3-picture deal with Canon. This was one of the films they wanted him to do Chainsaw 2. But he opted to add more to the dark humor that he had intended for the original film. This one, DJ Stretch, played by a debuting Caroline Williams, listens in on 2 yuppies getting slaughtered, and she has the recording of the murders, and attracts the attention of Lefty Enright, who's the uncle of Sally and Franklin Hardesty. He's played by Dennis Hopper, who for some reason said this is one of the worst movies he's ever done. I totally disagree. This is not one of the worst movies he's ever done. If you want the worst movie he's ever done is Super Mario Brothers. Okay, seriously. Let's just not talk about that. The less said, the better. Anyway, on his mission of revenge, he uses Stretch as bait so he can lure the Sawyers out, and he has them followed to an abandoned amusement park, and he's going nuts. He's got 2 small chainsaws and 6 shooter holsters, and got the big large chainsaw. Come on, he's having fun. He's got to be having fun with this. I mean, who else where a guy starts singing and calls himself the Lord of the Harvest? But Bill Johnson was a great Leatherface. Now kind of like the mentality of a teenager. Kind of felt bad for him in one particular scene because he was supposed to kill Stretch and he doesn't because he's in love with her. And when he's busted, you kind of sympathize with Leatherface on this one. But the highlight of the film is Bill Moseley's Chop Top. Man, was that a film debut or what? Coming in like, whoa, and, he's revealed to be the hitchhiker's twin brother who served in Vietnam during the first film. So Tom Savini's effects were great. The mask looks phenomenal in this one. The chainsaw duel between Lefty and Leatherface can't be said enough. I love it. So with that said, number 2 is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And of course, the original is the top of the list. This is still my all-time favorite horror film of all time. I think of it more, I don't think of it as a slasher film. It might be one of the predominant slasher flicks, but in my opinion, the truth is this original film is a psychological thriller with slasher overtones. That's the best way to describe it. True story. I lent this to my film studies mentor years ago, and of course, this is when I had the DVD, not this special Blu-ray. And lent to my mentor for a week. Gave it back to me and told me they had to turn it off 5 to 7 minutes into the movie where they passed the cows. When the van's passing the cows and Franklin's talking about the slaughterhouse, they turned off the movie. Lent it to my classmate the very same day. A week later, I get it back. Same story. They turned it off 5 to 7 minutes later when Franklin talks about the slaughterhouse and they're passing the cows. Wow. But the movie's not bloody at all. The most blood you see is all over Sally Hardesty as she's getting chased or she's getting hit with the hammer, and it's more like less. I think if a movie like if this was released the way it is today, solid PG-13 at least for sure. But the dinner scene was one of the most disturbing factor. You see the whites in their eyes in the one scene or the one extreme close up, and that's said. And then Gunnar Hansen, enough can't be said about him as Leatherface. He nailed it. He's always going to be the OG. Marilyn Burns, great as Sally Hardesty. Yeah, so that's the original. So let's rank them again in order. Number 9, Next Generation. Number 8, Texas Chainsaw 2013. Number 7, Leatherface 2017. Number 6, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Number 5, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Number 4, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. Number 3, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. Number 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. And finally, the original is the number 1 on the list. Well, that's all I got to say about this title. And anyway, this video is dedicated to every member of the Texas Chainsaw family that is no longer with us. Toby Hooper, Marilyn Burns, Gunnar Hansen, Paulie Bertain, Jim Saito. I know there's a few others out there, but Lou Perriman, anyone involved with Robert Jacks, anyone involved with this franchise who's no longer with us, this ranking is dedicated to you. So anyway, check out WorldFilmGeek.com for latest reviews. Check out my YouTube channel for interviews. Go to Anchor.fm, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Now we have, instead of Radio Public, they've merged into Acast. So go to Acast and Breaker. I think I mentioned Breaker already, but anyway, for my podcast, every Friday I do a new episode of Movies That Need More Love. But I got some new special stuff coming up, new special episodes in the works. So until then, have a great weekend.